Hey, happy Friday, everybody. I'm Elder Ron Saylor, and it's time for 15 minutes of afternoon inspiration. I have been waiting to hang out with you all week long. We're going to have a complete ball today. I want you to take your electronic device and send a text message to 4 or 5 people, letting them know it's time for 15 minutes of afternoon inspiration here at New Birth. And while you're doing that, please take a moment and hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you don't miss any of the exciting content that comes from New Birth Cathedral and the ministry of Dr. Jamal Bryant. While I'm talking about Dr. Bryant, I've got to give him a big kudos for an amazing week of ministry work in Washington, D.C., meeting with the Vice President of the United States and a coalition of other civil rights leaders to bring national attention to the need for federal voter laws, federal change in voting laws from coast to coast, so that it is not more difficult for one group of people to vote than another, and to make sure that all votes when cast are counted. It's important work, and we celebrate you for your leadership on that, Dr. Bryant. Today, I want you to take your Bibles and open them, please, to John chapter number 8. And at verse number 36, we're going to put our attention today. This is a series entitled Painkillers. And today is Painkillers Part 3, chapters. Whatever chapter you happen to be in your life, the Lord is going to remove the pain from that. If you haven't been following this series of painkillers, I want you to go watch the 2 previous Sundays at New Birth Church and hear Dr. Bryant preach about painkillers, and the whole preaching staff at New Birth, 12:30 every day, has been working through painkillers. Today, I'm on Painkillers Part 3. Make sure you catch Part 1, the preamble to painkillers, Part 2, titles, and today is Painkillers Part 3, chapters. You'll understand it better. Look at John chapter number 8, verse 36. It says, "Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed." Our nation is in the middle of a period of uproar and positive excitement. Happy about the fact that President Joseph Biden, following the leadership of the United States House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, has just signed into law an action making Juneteenth a federally recognized holiday. While the nation is extremely excited, there is an even greater sense of jubilation which runs through the heart of the African American church. For it's the Black church that God has given the unique social mission to put hands to the gospel message that touches the hearts and the minds of the people, and to make sure that the liberation message that Jesus brings in the pages of the Bible plays itself out in the lives of the people in the workaday world where we all live. It's a celebration and a victory for the Black church whenever people take off the shackles of bondage. And Juneteenth and the federally recognized celebration of such is a great joy for African American churches. For we are not far removed from the memory of what Juneteenth historically was. It's the story of a president who signed an Emancipation Proclamation to free the slaves. However, in the farthest reaches of our nation, especially around Galveston, Texas, it took more than 2 years for people who lived in slavery to realize that they had been freed and set free. In Galveston, Texas, for more than 2 years, they lived in unnecessary chains and shackles. For more than 2 years, they remained under a bondage when they actually had already been made free. The problem was that for 2 long years, nobody brought them the message. It's not a situation that you can look at as a churchman and fail to recognize the glaring overtones of the evangelistic nature of the work of God that screams from the history of the story. Because the truth is, in fact, at the core of our gospel is a message about the messenger God sends to bring his people out of bondage. Don't you remember John 3:16? For God so loved the world, here it is, that he sent his only begotten Son, a messenger, true indeed, to make sure that those people who lived under the tyranny of spiritual bondage would get the message that freedom and liberation is the order of the day in the world God created. I thank God for the fact that Jesus Christ comes with the message of freedom and liberation. And I'm more grateful for the fact that at the moment my heart is ready to receive it and my head is ready to understand it, at that moment I am made free. I don't have to spend 2 extra years in bondage. I don't have to spend 2 extra seconds in bondage. The day I hear his voice and harden not my heart, at that exact moment I become free. Let me ask you, can you remember the very moment when the gospel message of Jesus Christ made you free? You ought to type in that chat, I remember the moment. It didn't take me 2 years to wrestle with it. It didn't take you 2 extra minutes to wrestle with it. But I want you to type in that chat, I remember the exact moment when the love of God warmed my heart and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ caused the shackles to fall off of my arms. Type it in the chat. I remember the moment when the burden and the pressure of trying to live without God was all resolved for me. Do you remember that moment? You ought to type it in the chat. I remember the moment I received the message. Here is Jesus on the pages of John chapter 8, taking that message to a group of people who have a peculiar problem. It's not unlike what we deal with in our work as gospel spreading messengers today. He's dealing with 2 groups of people, the first of which think they are free when they really are not, and the second of which are already free, but they don't recognize that they are. Jesus has to talk to them and help them to realize that they are both under the tyranny of one insidious slave master who has them tied up in a bondage that he is not willing to easily let go. He says to this group of Abrahamic descendants who argue with Jesus that we have never been in physical slavery. We don't know what you are talking about when you talk to us about bondage. He has to help them to understand that all chains are not metal and all bondage is not literal. There's a spiritual bondage that every person who is born in this world is subject to. He helps them to understand the message that I hope does not miss many of you who are outside of the ark of the love of Christ today. And that message is that without Jesus Christ, sin is your master. It's an insidious, subtle master who doesn't really give you an opportunity to be the most or the best of who you actually are. For at every given opportunity, it takes its chance to bully and to push you, to lead you by lower nature drives and desires, to cause you to avail yourself to every opportunity to do the things that separate you from God and block you from the presence of God's power and God's love. Sin is a tyrant. I can remember as a younger boy, I used to watch these cartoons, and there was always one man who would show up with an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other. And these two warring polarities would fight for control of the man's mind. Jesus in John chapter 8 is saying to us that your life is nothing like that cartoon. Before you come to know Jesus Christ, there is no angel anywhere involved. All you have is a devil, sin, driving you, pushing you, causing you to do things that separate you from God that you would not do at all if you were not under the vice grip of a tyrant called sin. And if that enough, it's not enough, There's another group of people who is here in this same conversation who actually are free but don't recognize they're free, because the partner of sin, which is called shame, has everybody whom sin is not actively gripping. They go hand in hand like Bonnie and Clyde, left and right, black and white. Sin and shame are dance partners, and shame will cause those who have moved away from sin to still not enter the liberated freedom of the presence of a life in God. You know what shame is, don't you? Put your hands back on that keyboard and type, "I remember what it feels like to live some time in shame." You remember it, don't you? When the nature of the sin didn't bother you. You might have actually enjoyed it or thought it was fun, but when you woke up the next morning, or when you look back 24 hours later, or when you reflected in your moments of silence about what you had done, the shame would sit down on your shoulders. You remember that feeling, don't you? Type it in the chat. I remember the shame. I remember what it feels like when I would condemn myself from stuff that I would do, that I appeared to have no power to stop myself from doing. If you have ever been there, don't you leave me out here by myself. You ought to put your hands on that keyboard and type, "I remember all too well what it felt like to be in shame." And Jesus comes to deal with this primary pain in the life of believers. The pain that comes from doing stuff you don't want to do, but the problem is you can't stop doing it. And then after you do it, you can't stop feeling bad about what you did. It is a figure 8 infinity loop that never ever ends unless you get someone who is stronger than the strong man to break the pattern of the habit in your life. That makes Jesus Christ the central painkiller of all of history, because he frees us from the pain and frees us from the shame and releases us from a death sentence. There he is, explaining to those who would never be free otherwise the central nature of his ministry, that he whom the Son sets free is free indeed. You can't free yourself from sin, and you can't motivate yourself out of shame. But there's a messenger who came from heaven who did it all for us. Now it's time for you to recognize the debt of gratitude that all of us owe Jesus for the work he's done in our lives. And how we pay that debt is by publicly giving him thanksgiving and praise for the nature of the liberation and freedom that he won on our behalf. His message made us free. Why don't you put your hands on that keyboard for one final time in this message? And I want you, if you feel like I do, to just type in that chat, "I'm thankful that I got the message." I'm thankful that I got the message that I no longer have to serve sin and hold my head in shame. I'm thankful that I got the message that I don't have to fight with the devil and dance in the dark all of the days in my life. I'm thankful that I got the message that God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever would believe in him should not perish but would have everlasting life. Type it in the chat. I'm thankful I got that message. I'm thankful I'm free. I'm thankful I'm liberated. I'm thankful I don't have to do what I used to do. Places I used to go, I don't go no more. Of course I don't. I'm not a slave anymore. I'm thankful I got that message. People I used to hang out with, sayonara, see you later, alligator. Of course I'm not hanging out with you. I'm not your type, your kind. I got the message that made me free. And if you are watching this message and you don't know what we're talking about, let me give you that message right now. I want you to bow your heads and say these words after me. Jesus, I am a sinner who lives in the bondage of sin and death. I accept your message and your sacrifice. Come into my heart and save me. Set me free, and I will live and follow your example the rest of my life. If you just prayed that prayer, you want to know what you are? You are saved. That's what you are. And that message which you just heard, just let you join the freedom party that all of us are celebrating. You ought to put your hands together and tell God thank you for that. In fact, if you're watching this and you're already saved, type congratulations all down the chat for the new people who have just come into the freedom that Jesus Christ offers through the love of his ministry and his sacrifice on the cross. I'm done today. I want you to watch the video announcements that are going to come. They're going to bless your life. But before you go, you got to do two important things. The first one is you got to look at the prompts that are below and join New Birth Cathedral, the ministry of Dr. Jamal Harrison Bryant. You see the prompts all across the bottom of the screen. Get connected to this church so we can build up the God kind of faith that is in you. Next, I want you to take a seed of $36 and sow that seed. Whoop, there it is, giving prompts. Right on the bottom of the screen, push to pay, New Birth Secure website, many different ways for you to give. I want you to use one of those and sow a seed of $36 now, so the freedom that you've been hearing about and that joy that you feel in your spirit will walk with you all of the days of your life. I had a ball hanging out with you. I look forward to seeing you next Friday, okay? You're free. That's the end of that rough chapter. It's over. God loves you, and I do too. We'll see you next week. God bless you.
Hey New Birth, it's time for your video announcements. Pick up a copy of this month's Book of the Month, African American Healthy by Richard Walker. Reminder, June is Work on My Health Month here at New Birth. Ladies, do you have a man in your life that you would like to honor? Please register him for our Hibachi on the Lawn Father's Day celebration on Saturday, June 19th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Men, if you have not yet registered, you still have time. Hurry, seats are going quickly. Please register online at wearenewbirth.org. This event includes a sit-down dinner on the lawn with a live hibachi show, entertainment, prizes, and gifts. Please join us on Sunday, June 20th at 9:30 a.m. for our Father's Day and Juneteenth celebration at Centennial Park. Please bring your lawn chair or blanket and invite your friends and family. We encourage you to take MARTA, carpool, or Uber as parking is very limited. Please join us online for our full recovery revival on Tuesday, June 22nd through Thursday, June 24th at 7:30 p.m. nightly. On Tuesday, we welcome the ministry of Bishop Darren Moore and Smokey Norfolk. Wednesday's guests are Apostle Suzette Messiah and J.J. Harrison. Our revival concludes on Thursday with Bishop Drew Sheard and First Lady Karen Sheard. Don't miss this life-changing summer revival. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. Emerging Generations is hosting its second annual ice cream pull-up. Join us on Saturday, June 26th from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. for a sweet treat to cool the heat. Visit wearenewbirth.org to register so we know that you're coming. July is sabbatical month here at New Birth, and our King's Table will be taking some time to revive and refresh. We will be closed from July 1st through July 31st and will reopen on Saturday, August the 7th. If you're in need of groceries, please contact the Atlanta Community Food Bank. Please visit acfb.org and click on Get Help to locate the nearest food pantry, or you may text Find Food to the number below or call 404-892-3333. And that's it for your video announcements.